Welcome to Rotary today. It's November the 10th, 2025. If you all will be seated, I have a little different program we're going to do today. In recognition of all the veterans here today, we would like for all veterans to please stand, whether you're a Rotarian or a guest of a Rotarian. And what we've done for our country. Now, the rest of you will stand and we'll sing.
Honor for veterans, let's do God Bless America before we do the national anthem. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with gold. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose was stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight? Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets that flared the bursting air gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good to see you.
I would like to share with you this prayer that's been adopted as the church prayer by the French armed forces. It has its originated in World War II, and it was anybody here? And it was found in the belongings of a fellow who didn't make it back from the mission. He was with the SAS. And so at that time, the French had been kicked out of the war, the Americans were not yet in the war, and anybody who was left in North Africa at the time to fight the Italians and Rome were free French paratroopers that got left over there in the Brits. And so anyway, they formed the SAS, and it was a pretty rogue organization. They were attacking Germans behind lines, and it was dangerous because if they broke down before they could get back into the desert, the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, would be on the next day. And that's what happened to this fellow here. They were caught out to the desert and bombed. And the survivors went back to camp, and in this guy's belongings, his name was Andre Zinfeld, they found this prayer. I ask you, O Lord, to give me what I cannot obtain for myself. Give me, my Lord, what you have left. Give me what no one asks of you. I do not ask for repose or for tranquility of body or soul. I ask not for riches or success or else. My Lord, you are asked for such things so much that you cannot have any more of me. Give me, my God, what you have left. Give me what others don't want. I want uncertainty and doubt. I want torment and battle. Give them to me absolutely, O Lord, so that I can be sure of having them always. For I will not always have the courage to ask for them from you. Give me, my God, what you have left. Give me what matters, what others do not want. But give me also the bravery, strength, and faith. These things, O Lord, that only you can give. Amen. Okay, Steve, and I'd like to welcome our guests with us today. We have Lori Dunlop, guest Ina Russell. We have Amanda Bearden, guest Dan Parks. Joe, okay. And we have our district attorney, Josh Keats, here as guest of Kate Hall.
We have a few announcements. The first announcement is we have November birthdays. So I'm going to call the names, and if you're on this list, please stand up. Larry's going to get a workout today. Greg Brophy, Jennifer Erickson, Chris Eubank, Dave Reeves, Richard Carr, Scott Livesay, Kyle Martin, Jim Newcomb, Bob Allen, Daniel Parks, Darian Scroff, Jack Stewart, Ken Surrey, and Thomas West. Let's sing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Rotarians. Happy birthday to you.
And many more. I think when you all got here today, while you were getting your badge and paying for lunch, you saw some ballots. Those are our official ballots. We have 4 nominees to serve on the board of directors for the next Rotary year. We also have room for a couple write-ins, so let me know if you want me to write your name in, and I can certainly get some votes for you. Otherwise, if you didn't vote online, you shouldn't vote twice. So if you're that anxious, but if you haven't voted online, you're welcome to take one of the paper ballots and vote today. I think voting will end on Friday, so we should know at the next meeting who our new board members are. The other thing are dues. They're due, they're past due, so we hope that before the holidays hit you, if you get a chance, that you'll go online and pay your dues. Don't forget about contribution to the Youth Service Fund and also to the Rotary Foundation. And next, our stars from Lorena High School. Chris Garrett's going to bring us student guests.
All right, can y'all hear me? All right, all right, so we have student guests today from Lorena ISD, and they've been brought here today with their principal, Matt Rambo. So we want to welcome them here. Our first student we have is Megan Verana. Some little bit about Megan. Her mom and dad are David and Allison Verana. Allison is here today. And she has a brother, Marshall, and a sister named Molly. Her school activities, she's in band, basketball, SCCLA. She is the SCCLA Vice President. She's on National Honor Society and 4-H and FFA. Some of her community activities, she's been in Girl Scouts for 10 years. She's with the Waco McLean County Library volunteer. She's a Shepherd's Heart volunteer. She's the St. Jerome Catholic Church as an altar server, lector, Eucharistic minister, and she's a small group leader for about 10 years. I'm going to let Megan tell us about some of her future plans.
I plan to attend Texas A&M and get my bachelor's in English along with a teaching certification. And then I hope to get my master's in either English or library science to either become an English professor or a research librarian.
All right, next we have Haley Jacob. Her parents are Brian and Christine Jacob, which they're here also. Brothers Benjamin and Braxton. Some of her school activities, she's in varsity volleyball, varsity tennis, a National Honor Society, and part of the mock trial group. Some of her volunteer activities, community activities, she volunteers in the concession stands. She's a volunteer coach for Syntex Volleyball League. And I'm going to let Haley tell us about her future plans.
I plan to attend Baylor University to major in finance and entrepreneurship, and then get my bachelor's in business administration, and maybe attend law school to enter the business field.
So we'd just like to welcome y'all. We're glad that y'all could be here and excited for y'all in your future. And thank you, Matt, for bringing them here, and look forward to future guests. Thank y'all.
And chairman of today, we bring our program today, Rotarian Michael Popper.
Thank you, Rosemary. It is my honor today to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Bob Crouch. I have quite a long document here for his bio, but Bob is very humble, and he asked me to shortcut this a little bit, but just for y'all to understand that Bob's to Rotary and to all of us are great, and I'm not going to give it to Lieutenant Colonel Bob Crouch grew up in a military family and graduated from high school in Heidelberg, Germany. He is a distinguished military graduate from the University of Tampa ROTC program. He was commissioned a second lieutenant in May 1990. During his 20-plus year Army career, Bob served in various command and staff positions in units across the United States, in Germany, and in Iraq. He currently serves as the Vice President of the National Mounted Warfare Foundation. Bob became a Rotarian on April 6, 2012. He has served the Rotary Club of Clean Heights in multiple capacities, including Program Chair, Director of Service Projects, President-elect, and as President. Bob has served as an Assistant Governor and Governor of District 58-7. He has also served as the Chair of the Career and Technical Education Scholarship Program. He is a Paul Harris Fellow, a member of the Paul Harris Society, a Major Donor Level 1, a Rotary benefactor, and a sustaining member. Bob was inducted to the District 5870 Roll of Fame in 2018. This is the part where I skipped. Massive community involvement part. Bob and his wife, Dr. Colleen Crouch, have a son, Kennedy, a graduate of Stephen F. Austin State University, and a daughter, Lucy, graduate of the University of Tampa. Bob, thank you for your continued service and all of your time.
Well, if you remember, pull this way. If you all remember, the last time I spoke to your club, it was when I was district governor. And before that, I believe we spoke at your club pre-COVID about the museum. The museum is coming. But thank you for inviting us here, especially this week with the Veterans Day tomorrow. I did have a couple of people, Harold and Kate Paul in particular, who asked why I wasn't in Kilt today. And no, that's what he said. No, anyhow. But it's cold out and it's breezy, right? And that's Rotary stuff. I'm here to talk about the veterans and things. And again, I thank you all for doing that. But the way we're going to do our program today, and I know Rosemary's going to give me a 5-minute warning into this. But I'm going to introduce to you my boss. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about service, his service, very distinguished service, leadership, and some of his experiences, a little bit about mounted combat. Maybe take some questions, I don't know, but it is my honor to introduce to you my boss, Lieutenant General Retired Paul Funk.
I was at an event the other day when I introduced him, and it's very, very true. He says his friends call him Butch, but and I'm a very close friend of his. We are very close friends, but as a retired lieutenant colonel, he'll always be sir to me. Right? But let me tell you a little bit about him. So he graduated from Montana State University up in the Great White North, and he served at every level of command, from platoon leader to the commander of 3 Corps in Fort Hood, which is his culminating job. And in there, he has some interesting things. That is interesting for an Army officer to serve at every rank. That doesn't often happen, to serve as in command. I don't know if you say highlights, probably highlights of his career, most impactful times was he was a commander of Apache Troop 1st and 9th Cavalry Regiment in Vietnam, which is an air cavalry squadron. He also, or Air Cavalry Troop, he also served as the commanding general for the 3rd Armored Division in Desert Storm, and it was his division essentially wiped out the Iraqi army. And then he concluded again as the commanding general of 3 Corps in Fort Hood. And some other things he's pretty proud of is he's the 3-star, retired 3-star general. His son, who also commanded 3 Corps, and I'll mention that in a minute, his son retired as a 4-star. But this one doesn't salute his son, I'll just tell you that. There's one person in the house that all of them salute, regardless of how many stars they have on their collar, and that's his bride, Annie. And she's the 6-star general of the house. But I mentioned his son, Paul. And this Paul and Paul II have something very unique. They're only the second time in the United States Army history that a father and son have commanded the same 3-star level command. And the other, you might know who the other ones were. The Abrams, Craig Abrams, very famous general, and his son, and my boss and his son both commanded 3 Corps. But without further ado, wait a minute, I forgot the most important thing. Here, take me a minute to say this. Out of all that, and all the awards and things that he's had to go great in his life, the things he's most proud about is his family. And he's got 3 kids, 8 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. 4, I lose track. That's right, let's record straight. But he is a family man, he's also a ranger, so he's hot cap too if you want. But please give a round of applause for Paul.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of his kids and grandkids, and they're great. So we're fortunate. We're blessed that we came back to Texas, started out in Montana, and both my wife and I, none of either one of our families had anyone in the career military. So that was a big change for our families. A lot of people served, but they came back home, maybe back to the business, or the ranch, or whatever it was. And I just chose a little different path. So I'm the black sheep of the family. My 2 brothers and sisters are still alive, and they're up in Montana to this day, which is a great place. I'll tell you, in the wintertime, you don't want to be punching cows in Montana. I've done that. First, before I forget about it, I mean, here we are singing God Bless America, which I thought everybody did great. That calls to mind one of my special events in my time in the military. Besides being in Vietnam and in Desert Storm, I spent a tour in Korea. It was a year's tour. It felt like 10 years, but that's another story. I was an air cavalry troop commander there too. And we were invited, every month we'd be invited to attend a little kind of ceremonial thing at the orphanage. It was a boys' orphanage right off the end of our little runway there in Korea. Little guys about this tall to maybe that tall. None of them were high school age. And it was very moving in many ways. But one of the things they said they required, and caught me totally by surprise, was the guest had to sing a song at the end of this, because these kids put on a program where they sang all kinds of songs, including how to beat the hell out of the North Koreans and all that sort of thing. You know, everybody was fired up about that. But so I get up in front of that that little group of kids. And I sang God Bless America. It's the only thing that could come to mind, and I could reasonably perform it. So I didn't think much about that. Everybody clapped and had fun. The next month we went back there, and their little chorus got up, and the first thing they sang was God Bless America. And I still get a little bit weepy. I think about those little kids. Here they were, they didn't, I mean, this is a pretty tough place up there. That time in Korea, and we were out in what's called the Western Corridor, and it was all agrarian. And these young boys didn't know what they were going to do or how they were going to do it. And they sang God Bless America beautifully. I've never forgotten that, because it sort of tells you one of the benefits of being a veteran that maybe you don't think about. And that is the service in other countries, service with other peoples, and you don't know what impact you're going to have. That one stuck with me for a long time. Korean people, by the way, were great, hard-working, and very interesting. But like I said, I have been back there since, but I wouldn't go back there to stay for very long. But my gosh, how it changed, and I think 15, 20 years later, when I went back there, that place is a powerhouse. And probably, well, I hope all those orphan boys were successful. So, one of the things about being a veteran, and those of you who have taken the oath know this, when you probably heard others say this, when you take that oath, you don't sign up for a term or anything else. You sort of take that oath for life. And you're offered to provide up to and including your life for raising your hand and saying that I swear that I will support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, it's not a flag-waving thing. When we were in Vietnam, lots of people back here weren't waving flags, they were burning our flag. Lots of people back here were throwing things at soldiers coming back from the war, spitting on them, doing all kinds of unconscionable things in my view. But you know, that didn't, in any way, that didn't change the performance of your soldiers in the great 8th Troop. Our call sign was Apache. So I was Apache 6, the commander of that troop. That didn't change the behavior of those young men. All men, of course, at that time. It didn't change the way they fought. And it didn't even change the way that they talked about things. Because in war, what you really end up doing is fighting for one another. I promise you that when you're out there and you're by yourselves virtually, away from everything that you hold dear, at least in our army, because we always seem to deploy to go somewhere and fight. What you're really thinking about is one another, and I'm not letting that guy next to me down, or the one flying behind me in the Cobra, which was what I spent most of my time in the gunship. No, you're thinking about how I can take care of my guys. In my case, we were authorized 248 in that troop. We never got to that strength. And there were lots of casualties. Way more than I like to talk about. Some people believe that drones are the most wonderful thing that ever came along, and you won't need anything else but a bunch of drones to win wars. Well, it's silly. If I had a few drones at the time, I wasn't a believer in them, I could have saved lots of lives of my guys, because they literally were doing what we use drones for, to fly in and out of triple canopy jungle, trying to find the enemy. Well, unfortunately, the enemy heard us coming first and shot my young people down way too long. They were the bravest and most skilled fighters that I've ever seen. And I spent a good deal of Bob mentioned at the time in our army thinking about that and training for that. What a great calling it was for them. Many of them were draftees. At that time, we still had a draftee army. And they fought equally as well as all the volunteers. It's sort of a tradition in our country that I hope we never lose. I hope we never ever fight a war like that again, because it was a stupid war. And what people reacted to it, or a lot of people reacted to it, took it out on the soldiers was absolutely criminal, in my opinion, but we had the satisfaction of serving together, fighting together, and we still get together. Earlier this year, we ended up in Missoula, Montana. Had our reunion there. We're doing them every year now because enough of the guys are dying that we don't want to lose them before we get together one more time. But at that time, I think everybody reaffirmed their commitment to one another. And there wasn't bitterness about their service. All of us felt the loss of those that we had served with. And that's also applied to the veteran. I promise you that you think about that almost every day. But what's important about these groups and those get-togethers is it was just reaffirming what I said earlier. What we were fighting for was one another. We lost almost 59,000 soldiers of all services, of course, in that war. And we never could get straight at the top of our government what it was we were fighting about and for. And so don't ever let that happen again. That's my message. That's the message of all the Apache troopers. If you're going to send us, crying out loud, send us with a purpose and with goals and objectives. And then I'll jump to the other war in which I participated and was honored again to lead American troops. What an honor that is. There is no honor like it. I promise you that too. And in Desert Storm, we had the guy that I think was the greatest president in my lifetime here. Some will agree with this maybe, and probably a lot will disagree. It turns out he only elected one term. His name was George H.W. Bush. And he was smart and humble, even though he was a pretty rich guy, came from wealth. And he cared about us, and we knew that. And that was the difference. And he decided, when and John Powell, whom I worked for right after the war, said he was the strongest of all of us. The president decided, he said, we're going to do this because it's the right thing to do, and then we're coming home. And that's exactly what we did. We turned the Iraqi army into almost nothing. It was a great performance for your soldiers, and they were magnificent. But we did it with that in mind. High objectives when we accomplished it, we came home. That's the way, if you're going to fight wars, and I'm not even saying I believe we ought to fight any. But in the event you decide that that's what a democracy ought to do, you have clear goals and objectives, you commit your folks, and then you come home. And maybe you help the country like we did Germany and Japan. By the way, folks, nobody, no nation in the world, no nation in the world has done as much for their friends and even their enemies ever as this country has. It's true. And yet we hear people say, well, we got to have the United Nations, this, that, we got to do. Listen, that's never worked very well. We have the Roman Empire. God, they invented crucifixion. I mean, for crying out loud, they didn't do a lot. They did a lot of good for the few Roman citizens there were. They didn't do anything to raise anybody else up. They just took. That's not been our way, and I don't think it ever should be. And I think you as citizens can get behind something like that. Anyway, President Bush did a terrific job, in my view, in sending us off to that fight. Our soldiers were magnificent again. And when they came home with all those yellow ribbons, which some of you will remember, and bands and parades, it was richly deserved. But I think my guys from Vietnam maybe were vindicated too, because maybe the people said, we're not going to let that happen again. And we haven't. So service can be a very lonely thing. And I got to be pretty much that way for a lot of the soldiers in Vietnam after they came home. That's sort of kind of the thing that I wish you maybe would think about if you have friends or relatives to serve. The loneliness didn't occur when there was, of course it did, we were all lonely for our families, but it occurred mainly when they came home. And nobody wanted anything to do with it. Even their families sometimes, but certainly the guys didn't want to talk about it either with their families. They felt embarrassed to serve. The only people who should have been embarrassed were the cowards in Canada, in my opinion. Those who served deserve a big pat on the back. The VA didn't quite abandon this, but they weren't too shiny either when it came time to take care of soldiers of that war. That's changed too, thanks to a lot of good leadership, both the VA and in our government, and from people standing up and saying these soldiers deserve that. Service is something that you're never going to be paid for in currency. In my view, the service that you do, that you provide, and it isn't even that it's a lofty kind of a thing. It's that it's doing what you think is right and doing it for the right reasons and caring about the people you serve with and the people at home. Not everybody can serve, and of course we're an all-volunteer force and have been since right after Vietnam. I'm all for that too, but it is a little bit worrisome. Less than 1% of our young people are even eligible to serve anymore. They can't serve because of health reasons, they're too fat, because of drug problems that they've had, and their records. Some of them can't quite meet some of the other standards. But it's a little bit scary to me that out there in that cohort of young men, we got young people like these young ladies here today who have done so many things already in their lives and will do even more for the country. I know they will. But it is a little bit worrisome to me that a whole bunch of people in their age cohort can't even serve. They're not eligible. So I would add that as a note of caution for all of you out there as you think about the future of the country. We all got to get on a program, I guess, and figure out how to stay healthy and keep learning. So finally, let me, before I turn it over to Bob, and if we have time, Bob's going to talk a little bit about the museum. Some of you have been there. Unfortunately, like the rest of the government, is shut down right now. I'm sad to say that, because it's worth stopping and seeing. It is free admission because you all own it. It's one of your possessions. And that's why we don't charge for military museums, which I think is quite right. I could think of different paths I could have taken in life. I certainly don't regret in any way the service that I was privileged to have in our Army. As a leader in that Army, and particularly as a leader in wartime. The Battle of Gettysburg, there's the book Killer Angels. If you haven't read it and you want to really read about fighting and about that battle and about North and South, but mainly just about soldiers and soldiers. There's a passage where General Lee is talking to General Longstreet. They're riding forward. It's hot. It's the 3rd of July, what's going to become the Battle of Gettysburg. And they're riding together and they're talking about different things. And General Lee turns to his friend and says, "Soldier has one great trap. That is, you may very well have to order the death of that which you love. No other profession requires it. No other profession comes close to that responsibility." That responsibility, I felt that responsibility, not because I'm a wonderful person, but because it's there if you're a commander and a leader in combat. That about says it all about our country and about service for it. So thanks to all the veterans out there. Thanks to you all for inviting us today. It's a privilege to be here. And if I can answer any questions, I'll do it at any time. And gladly. Yes, sir.
First, thank you for your representative, if that's who replaced this room, and not to be political anyway, what's the one message you would deliver to them right now?
Never send your young men and women to war without a clear reason and a clear plan. Don't do it. Because when you commit the United States of America to war, that's a total commitment. You cannot do that in a half, honestly. And I think that's a wonderful question. That's first on my mind and has been for a lot of years. Thanks for that. Okay, anybody else? All right, if we got time, if I haven't lagged too much, Bob, we got a couple of minutes. Okay, good. Thanks a lot, folks. Appreciate it.
And I'll run through the presentation fairly quickly, so if you do have more questions, we'll stick around a little bit at the end. But how many of y'all have been down to the National Mounted Warrior Museum at Fort Hood? A couple of you. What do you think? And I think some of you may have been there before all the stuff was in it before we actually opened, so come back because now it's really, really cool. But just going to walk you through some slides about the museum and about the project and just tell you that first off, the difference between the National Mounted Warfare Foundation, of which you're seeing the entire staff right here, it's the two of us, and the National Mounted Warrior Museum, which is an Army entity. So the foundation, our job was to, as you can see here, mission was to build and support the National Mounted Warrior Museum in Fort Hood. And so it was our responsibility to plan for it, design it, raise the money for it, and then build it. And now that it's open to support it. The museum was turned over after we got done building it in November of 2021. In February of 2022, we turned it over to the U.S. Army in Fort Hood. And that's when General Funk was saying, it's your building. All of you in here are taxpayers. You own this building. It's your property, so be proud of it.
But if you raise all the money from the private source.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to make that clear.
Yes, that was-
The deal, we build it, and then we give it to them and say.
Yes, so we built it, and so the day-to-day operations of the museum are done by government civilians who are employed in that role. And here's what we see. We think it's a unique educational opportunity. Y'all have some great stuff up here with Mayborn Museum and some other things, but we don't have any destination activities in the Clinton area. And so we believe that's what this museum is. Real quickly, I'm not going to read this slide, but over time, there have been multiple museums on Fort Hood, and that have transferred between units, and in the mid-80s, General Shoemaker said, who was the commanding general of the 3-Point Fort Hood, said, hey, we should consider making one museum that represents all the units and soldiers that have served there over time. And so that's what we did. They tried to do that in the mid-80s, didn't quite work, and then in 2010, the city of Killeen and the command staff of Fort Hood got together and said, let's see if it's the time to do that. Where it's located, I'm going to laser pointer here for the work, as you can see. So down below the screen is Interstate 14. Some of y'all may know that as Highway 190. Off the top of the screen is the security perimeter for the post. So what this means is you can get to the museum without having to have an ID card or get a pass. It's actually on Army property but outside the security zone. So you come right up right here, which is TJ Mills Boulevard, the visitor center, the Marvin Lee Visitor Center is right here. And so you just come off the 190 through TJ Mills, and then come into the parking lot, visit the museum, and then take a loop back out. So you don't have to have a pass, which is a great thing. The other cool thing we have as part of the location is over here is the 1st Cavalry Division Horse Detachment, which I don't know if any of you all are familiar with that, but they perform on horseback, as the mid-1800s cavalry unit would do. They've marched in presidential inaugurations, the Rose Parade since 1996, and they do rodeos and other things. That's kind of a promotional thing for the United States Army. Our floor plan and everything you see in dark blue is present right now. That's our first phase. We had somebody really smart say, don't build the elephant, or don't try to eat the elephant all at once. Take bite sizes out of it, get the doors open, and get people coming in. So the first phase does have a part of the parking, or half the parking lot entry plaza. It's got this rotunda, which is the central gathering area where you start your experience, and it's got 17,000 square foot permanent exhibit hall, 15,000 permanent square foot permanent exhibit hall, and then the mechanical section and receiving, and then a temporary exhibit hall where we have rotational exhibits. In phase 2, we're building a whole bunch of other stuff, depending on what a donor wants to build first, but we want to build these things right here, which are 4 multi-purpose classrooms that will be separated by bare walls, so you can open or close them as independent rooms. We'll also have a second exhibit hall, an amphitheater, a permanent gift shop, and then some office spaces. I'm just going to run through some pictures so you can see what it looks like, and those of you that were there before, but we worked these tips, you really get an idea of what it is. You start your experience in the rotunda where you start to understand a little bit about the evolution of mounted combat from horsepower to mechanized. And I'll tell you a real quick story about this helicopter. When we started this project, General Funk had two rules for me. He said, hey, if we're going to hang a helicopter anywhere, I want it to be an OH-6 Butch, which is a light observation helicopter that his scouts used in Vietnam. And I wanted to have our unit marked on it, so it does have markings from altitude 19 CAD. Second thing he said was, make sure this stuff calls the laser. And actually, that was him, this is right. But guess what? When you come visit, ladies, check out the ladies' room, because we've been told by at least 6 different ladies that the only thing that separates it from being Bucky's quality is we don't have light soapy stalls. So.
My wife's happier because she's the one who's beat me up.
So I won't run through this whole thing, but basically the museum tells the story of mounted combat in the United States Army, starting with the Revolutionary War, and right now, going up until about 2020, right after the War on Terror and everything. But the Army's not going anywhere, we don't think, or we hope it isn't. And so when we open up the second exhibit hall, we'll expand the story from there. And these are some images from the various exhibits. This is a cavalry trooper that meets you when you walk into the gallery. This is actually one of my favorite stories that I learned in the last couple of years, is that in the late 1800s, the Army decided to experiment with bicycles to get troops around the battlefield. And so they created the 25th Infantry Regiment, which all the soldiers were black, the leaders were white. And they rode bicycles from Missoula, Montana to St. Louis, and then from, Yosemite to St. Louis. So it's kind of an interesting story. 1,700 miles in 41 days. And then the end of war years, we've got Captain America motorcycle there. We've got an M10 tank destroyer as you get into the World War II era. You walk into this exhibit, it's really cool. I don't want to spoil any surprises, but that's some pretty cool visuals and effects. And the Korean era, Vietnam, and that's just went backwards on its own. And then we go into the Desert Storm era, and then the War on Terror. And then we do have a temporary exhibit hall, as I mentioned. Our first temporary exhibit in there was, I'll skip to that, that's more important. Just listen to this.
Wow. We had quite a few people get killed. And one time we went through the city and we could see persons, whole size of jails laying on the ground where the tank had got water around that and just blew them apart. You could see things like that. See people all along the way. And you could also see dead Germans lying on the ground that she was moving out. I remember one time we were in a approach march. We were quite a ways from the front line. And we were going through this little forest, this little river stream, I guess you might call it. We had an individual named Cromer. He was the scoutman. And he would go on the bank of this river and he tried to spot the enemy. And I remember there was a sniper spotted him. He was a good marksman. And he hit Cromer right between the eyes of the boy. And we moved on out. Romer's last one we around here was dead. And that was a negative impression on me. I can't speak for other people, but for me, I didn't think about it that way. It was just the way of life for us. We were there for the long haul. And if you got wounded or healed, that was it for you. But the battle continued. I'm glad you didn't have this burden effect on an individual. You hear a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder. Soldiers see all these things, and they being very on their mind. And after they get back to the States, they have this problem. They can still drink these things, feel about these things, and they can still in their mind. So I spent 23 years in the military. I started in 1968, and that's over 46 years ago. A few months ago, I here to say, I'm still pretty good health for all the things and experience. But I'll do it again. I love my country.
I didn't show you that today to be downer on a Monday, but I wanted to encapsulate there with the last two sentences he said. Ed Oda was unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but that was all unscripted. And what he said in his last two sentences, every veteran in this room understands. And will probably say the same thing. On Veterans Day, I would do it all again because I love my country. Thank you all very much. That's all I have. Any questions? Huh? Okay, turn it back over to you.
Thank you both for making the trip to Waco today. We really appreciate you, both of you, and all the veterans for your service. And we're all excited now to see. I saw the preview. I haven't gone to real, so I know check out the ladies' room and report back. I want to re-welcome the guests of Rotarians today, and also Megan and Haley. We hope that you'll think about Rotary when you start your careers as a good service organization, and we always need new and young Rotarians for sure. I want to thank the meeting participants, those that work at the front desk, that are in the room, and will now close down the room. We appreciate them too. Don't forget to vote. Don't forget to take your pay your dues. Our next meeting is November the 24th with U.S. Congressman Pete Sessions. We'll get our program that day. And now, if you'll stand, we'll say the forward test. Is it the truth? Rotary is